This is Sylvia Bolivar with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Thank you for joining us for this session of the PromiZone Mapping Tool webinar. This webinar is being co-hosted by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Corporation for National and Community Service. We are very appreciative of CNCS, who we are here in their offices, and they are streaming this webinar and making this webinar possible for all of you who are joining us on this session this afternoon. We will begin with Ben Winter, who is with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and he will provide a demonstration on how to navigate the mapping tool. Once the demonstration is completed, we have received questions from all those of you who are part of the session, and Ben Winter will then respond to those questions. After this webinar, if you still have additional questions, we encourage you to send us an email at promizone@hud.gov. That is promizone@hud.gov. And more information is also available on our website at www.hud.gov/promizones. With that, we will have Ben Winter begin. And thank you, Ben, for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, everybody. So my name is Ben Winter. I'm from the Office of Policy Development at HUD. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of how to use the mapping tool for the second round PromiZone designation. First of all, I wanted to give you a quick overview of the product. So we really developed this product to accomplish three major goals. One, so that we could standardize the application submissions for the application process. Two, so that applicants don't have to rely on artificial census boundaries to identify the target neighborhoods and communities that they want to work in. And three, to really simplify the application process for potential applicants. What the tool does is it's basically a platform where you draw in your target neighborhood or community for the PromiZone. And then the program emails you a PDF report that includes estimates for the overall population and poverty/ELI rate for the qualifying criteria, and estimates for the overall employment and long-term vacancy rate for the selection criteria. Note that this does not provide data on crime rates, which is applicable to a few of the applicants. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I wanted to demonstrate was just how to find it. You can always plug in the website here on huduser.org/pv/promizone.html, or you can navigate to the mapping tool from the PromiZone website in this link here at the bottom. Now, once we're here, I think when you're here, I think the first step that you should do is familiarize yourself with the tool and the functions that it has, and also create a login. So to create a login, you have to click on the login button, create an account, and you fill in your lead applicant name, your username, email, and password, and you confirm your password, and that's about it. Pretty simple. If you forget your password, it's pretty easy to get that back from the system. Now, we had questions before about, well, who should be the lead applicant name, who's going to be the email user and username. It doesn't really matter. You choose what best works for you, but the person that is going to be submitting the application, usually it's good to have their email there if that's the person who will need to go in and make changes again if that's necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and log in my username. Your username is your password. Okay, once we're logged in, let's go ahead and familiarize yourself with the functions. First thing that you should take a look at is this button here that shows the instructions. This is a detailed list of instructions, so this is a really great place for you to reference if you ever get stuck or have any questions. I would recommend going here first so you don't have to wait to hear responses from us if you do have questions, because we get a lot of questions. So this is a good first spot to go to. We also have the legend here. This is kind of useful. It shows what the different guides mean when you turn on some of these layers. the clear map function, where if you're drawing and you're working on it and you need to start over, you can hit clear map. If that doesn't work, you can always hit the refresh button up here. And then the zoom level is really important. It kind of shows what zoom level you're in. As you zoom in, you'll see that the number goes higher, and that is important if you want to turn on any of these guide layers. So these are guide layers. These are just to help you draw the neighborhood that you want to draw. You do not have to draw your neighborhood according to these shapes, but they're here to help if you need them. So you'll see here you can put on census tracts, and they're visible at zoom 9. You can show the poverty rate for census tracts. They're visible at zoom 9. You can zoom in, and this is kind of some of the underlying data there. And again, this is for a guide. You don't have to follow this at all. You could also show block groups. Notice how if block groups are only visible at zoom level 12, so you have to zoom in one more to see those outlines. Also, there's counties if you need them, again, as just a guide, and tribal areas as well, if you need them. So a couple tips for how to maneuver and work this. The first big tip is HUD does not, we don't have a preferred browser. We don't endorse any particular browser, but I do find that this particular tool works very well on Google Chrome. So if you're having trouble with other browsers, try to download the free Google Chrome and try to work on that as well. A couple other tips. I wish you had a video camera for my hand so you could see how I work the mouse, but basically if you click once, you can hold down the clicker on the left click and move the map around. You let go, and then it stops that. So click again once and you move around the map. If you want to zoom in quickly, there's a scroll. You use the scroll bar on your mouse. So you zoom in with the scroll bar and zoom out with the scroll bar. So that's just a couple quick tips. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to demonstrate what it's like to draw an urban applicant. I'm going to do, first of all, let's say I want to find, I want to draw something in Charleston, South Carolina. So I can type in an address here or select Charleston County here to dive right back in there. So let's just go ahead and do Charleston, South Carolina. And the map automatically zooms there. So this is where I want to start. Let's say I've already actually drawn something. I can hit the View Projects button, and I can load my a previously drawn neighborhood. This is a really important tool here. But let's go ahead and clear the map and start over. See how the clear the map doesn't always work? That's okay. You just hit the refresh button, and we can start again. All right, so let's go ahead and draw from scratch the neighborhood I just pulled up. So let's say, first of all, I like the tract information because I did some previous analysis on another project, so I kind of generally know which areas I'd like to focus in on here. But I know that I don't want to follow these boundaries precisely. I actually, for instance, would like I would like Interstate 26 to be my my boundary for my neighborhood. So when you're ready to start drawing, you click Draw once, and then you see that my my mouse symbol becomes a crosshairs. That means that we're beginning to draw. Now let's say I actually don't want to start drawing here. You just left click once, hold, and you can move the map up and down. Let's say I want to start my drawing up here. Let go of the clicker. And now when I want to start drawing, you just click once with your left clicker. And as I clicked once, that you see that the drawing has commenced. Now I can start drawing. Let's say I would like to follow Interstate 26, so I click once, I click again, go down a little, click again. I can zoom in if I want to be more detailed. I can zoom out if I don't need to be as detailed. Again, I need to go farther south, so I'm going to click once, hold it down, and move my map down, let go, and I'm going to continue drawing. And let's say I want to come down here to Rutledge Avenue, and I want to go all the way down to Calhoun Street. I'm going to make a couple vertices here, and I want to come out to, I want the river to be my other barrier. Now, notice how I am, notice when I went through the river, I didn't try very hard to get the perfect curves of the river. That will drive you crazy if you want to make it perfect. So you don't have to make it very perfect. The way that this functions is that it's picking up centroids of census blocks to create different weights to create an overall average for your application. So it does not have to be perfect along some of these lines. In fact, if you have too many clicks, the program will crash and it might not actually work. So again, we allow a lot of clicks, but I've seen some users that have so many vertices that the program crashes. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect. So anyways, let's say we're almost done drawing this boundary. So it automatically clipped to the end of where you first started drawing, and you double click. And once you double click, you name the community. Do not check this box unless you're a tribal applicant. This will allow you to create multiple shapes, but in general, for most applicants, you're required to only have one shape for your proposed promise zone. So you put a name on it, you hit submit, it says thank you, and now the wheels, the gears in the background are turning, and it's going to email you directly an automatic report that has all the information for your application. Now, since I don't have my email up, I'm going to actually click on View Projects, and here is the promise zone that I just drew, Charleston 2. I can load the shape there, and I can also click on the PDF here if I don't want to go to my email. So this is the automatic report, and I'm just going to quickly go over the report and the notes before we demonstrate drawing an rural and a tribal applicant. So first, this shows the target area ID. That's just an automatic ID that's populated so we can keep track of all the shapes that are created in our system. Email of user, the name of the lead applicant, address. This is all things that I populated when I created my account. That's automatically populated. This is the name of the target geography that you saw me fill in as Charleston 2. This is a helpful tip. This shows that there's an estimated number of all the units in my area that I drew is about 5,000 housing units. Now, this summarizes the qualifying criteria for urban, rural, and tribal applicants. Urban, you have to be one contiguous geography. That is why we said you cannot draw more than one shape. You have to have a poverty rate in the promise zone of over 33% and at least 10,000 people, but no more than 200,000. So then what the tool does, it automatically shows you what the poverty rate is for the target zone that you drew. In this case, it's 53%. Now keep in mind, this might not be the traditional poverty rate that you're used to, and I'll explain to that in a little bit. It's actually the greater of poverty or extremely low income rate. And then it also shows you what the population is in the target area. In this case, it's almost 12,000 people, so it does meet the 10,000 minimum threshold. Now the tool spits out a little bit of information for your needs selection criteria. for the percent of labor force that is employed or in the armed forces, it spits out an automatic populated estimate of 85%. And here it spits out a vacancy rate of 10%, and it also shows what the surrounding county vacancy rate is. So in this particular area, we have a much higher vacancy rate than the general market around it. The next page shows a snapshot of what our neighborhood looks like. And now I just want to go over the notes section to explain everything, what's going on behind the scenes and what the data is. So this first section here describes how the tool functions. Basically, the tool is grabbing all the lowest level geography data that we have and creates a weighted average for all the underlying values in the target area that you just drew. So for instance, if 80% of all the housing units in your zone that you drew are in just one block group that has a poverty rate of 40%, and the other 20% of all the housing units are in a block group with a poverty rate of 10%, then the average rate for the whole zone is calculated as 80% times 40% plus 20% times 10%, which equals 34%. Now, there's a couple notes, a couple weedy notes I wanted to highlight. First of all, the lowest level geography for all the data from the USPS, the U.S. Postal Service, is at the census tract level, and all the other variables from the census are either at the block group level if you're in a metropolitan statistical area, or at the census tract level. The block group level if you're in a metro area, or tract level if you're not within a metro area. Now the second section describes what our sources are for the different variables here. So you'll notice back here in the beginning, it shows what your target neighborhood community poverty rate is. So it says ACS 2011 or ELI rate from the CHAS 2010. So this section defines what ACS 2011 means and what CHAS 2010 means. Now, the third section explains how we calculate each of the variables. And I just wanted to spend a minute quickly on how we calculate the poverty variable because it is different than what you might be used to. For this application process, the lowest level geography, which is either the tract or block group, is either the rate of people in poverty or the rate of households that are extremely low income, or in other words, 30% or below of the HUD-defined area median income. And so that's the notes. Most of your questions can be answered directly from this, the notes page, and it can be answered here in the instructions. So again, before you shoot an email to us, if you want a quick response, first go to these instructions and also look at the notes page. Now quickly, I'm going to demonstrate drawing a rural applicant, but really it is the same as you were to draw a urban applicant. So I'm just going to go over here to Mississippi. In this example, let's pretend like I am a regional coalition of 2 county governments that wants to submit an application in Noxubee and Kemper counties. But my organization actually does work in the entire county of Noxubee and only half of Kemper County. And so I'm going to draw in the counties because I think that's a really helpful tool for me when I draw my zone. And I'm also going to draw in the tracts because the tracts are also really helpful because I know that my service area does follow tract lines, right? So the same thing happens here as the urban applicant. I like to use these guides for this particular one. So I'm going to draw my target area here. Again, you hit draw and you have crosshairs, and when you want to start drawing, you click once and it brings up this little line. As you move your mouse around, you can go all the way as far as you want. I'm going down to the border here. Click once. And now I'm going to click once and hold the map because I want to move down a little. And I'm going to come down here. Click once. I'm going to come down here. Click once. And now this is an example of I want to follow Highway 39. You can try to follow it exactly by zooming in and doing your vertices, or you can be a little bit more blunt about it and draw straight lines. It just really depends on what your preference is. I'm going to be blunt here to save some time. Okay, I'm going to click and hold to move my map up so I can continue drawing and complete my shape here. All right, so I'm going to name it just like I did for the urban applicant, submit. It emails you your PDF for the application, and that's it. So I can look at the PDF here, and in this particular case, promise zones have to be one contiguous boundary, and the overall poverty rate has to be 25% for rural applicants, and it cannot be more than 200 residents. So here, looks like my target neighborhood poverty rate or community rate is 37%. Looks like I meet that 25% threshold, and I have 17,000 people in this target area, not more than 200,000, so I'm okay to go. I can move ahead. So let's quickly I want to show you an example of how to draw a proposed zone that has multiple shapes for some tribal applicants if they need to. I'm going to go to the Lower Brule Reservation in South Dakota. Now again here, I'm going to turn on the tribal area layer as a guide. Again, this is a guide. It doesn't have to be, I don't have to exactly follow these boundaries, but I'm going to hit draw. And just as with the other one, I started with my crosshairs, clicked once, and I'm going to follow the river here. I'm going to be a little blunt about it. I'm not going to go crazy and put too many vertices in here, just as long as I'm going to pick up most of the centroids of the census blocks so that the weighting works. Okay, so I'm going to double click here to close it. I'm going to click this box because I know I want this little shape over here to the left. So I'm going to click it, and it just says, are you sure that you want an extra shape? Because not many people are allowed to do that. And I'm like, yep, I'm pretty sure. So overall, my community is Lower Brule. The first shape, I'm going to call it the main reservation. And I'm going to hit the continue drawing function. And so this will let me draw another shape. So I'm going to hit draw again. And just as the first time, I'm going to click once to start my drawing. And I'm going to draw a second box here. And I'm going to name my second shape. And now I can continue drawing and drawing another piece of land out here, or I can just stop there and hit Submit Shape. And again, it functions the same way as all the other applicants. You can hit the PDF and see here I have about the estimated rate here is 32%, 33 if you round up, with about 1,500 people estimated to be in the zone. And it shows you the first shape here, and then if you scroll down, this is the second shape, and it also includes the notes. So that concludes the demonstration of how to use the mapping tool. I hope it was useful. We have quite a bit of a few different questions that came through, and I was just going to go over a few of them. But if you have additional questions, again, please first use the instructions tab here. Might be helpful. And look at the notes page in the automatic PDF report. So with that, I guess we're going to get started with the questions. The first question that we had was, does the tool show city, town, or county boundaries? Because it's difficult to draw the precise boundaries of a town we want to focus on. It doesn't. The only thing that it has as guides are what's listed here: tracts, poverty, block groups, tribal areas, and counties. So, you know, that is definitely something we could put up there as an additional tool, an additional guide for you to use. But really, the more things we put on this tool, the more clunky it gets. And the whole purpose is so that it is it's a quick and nimble tool without a lot of bells and whistles. So I think we're looking at how to do that for maybe the next round, but I don't think it's going to be possible for this round. Next question is there a way to select census tracts without using the drawing tool to draw around it? No. The purpose of this tool is for you to draw your target community or neighborhood how you want to draw it. It does not have to follow census tracts, and you don't select census tracts to build up something up around it, right? So, for instance, if you have, let's go to Los Angeles. So these are different census tracts, right? And I know that I want these 1, 2, 3 particular census tracts to be in my community. Instead of selecting each one, you literally just draw around the full shape that you want, right? So you can follow the census tract boundaries if you'd like, or you can even go outside of those boundaries. Let's say I want to actually include parts of the fashion district here, but just south of Skid Row. So you can use them if you want as guides, but then you can go off and make the zone how you want the zone to look like, and then you're done. Okay, so that was that question. Let's go ahead and see, can you use the mapping tool without entering a lead applicant name? Yes, when you set up your account, it's up to you what you include here, lead applicant name. You can put in there whatever you want. It's not really up to us. You need to decide what's best for organizing your own work, and we're very flexible with that. Next question. Given the emphasis on metrics, are there disadvantages of defining boundaries that don't follow tract or block group geographies? No. I mean, I don't think there's necessarily disadvantages with it. I mean, it's just really a little bit of flexibility on our part. Not many programs, federal programs, let you go beyond the scope of census tract boundaries. So what it does is as we described earlier, the tool is taking a weighted average of the pieces of every tract and block group that make up the entire zone. So, for instance, if you have, if you are drawing a zone here, out here in West LA, and you want to include if you want to include this part of, you know, maybe a sliver of this low poverty block group, then yes, that will bring your score down. But it is if that's the zone that you want to focus your efforts in, then you should include it. Next question. We are in a suburban community between a rural and larger urban community. Are there accommodations in terms of population or poverty rate eligibility requirements to accommodate our type of community? We meet the poverty threshold but fall under the urban population requirement.
So as you're looking at whether or not you're urban or rural, if you have a population that's 49,000 or less, then if you qualify for a rural designation, then you should apply you should submit a rural application. For communities that have a population of 50,000 or above, then you would apply for an urban designation.
Okay. How long after the application deadline will this function of the website be inactive? Or will it be inactive at any point? So You know, this tool is really built for this particular application phase. It's not really built for other analytical purposes, so while it's fun to use and can actually be pretty useful for local planning purposes, it will only be supported and up and available during this application phase. We'll keep it running after the application window has closed, but we don't guarantee how long it'll be active after the application is closed.
But while we do have it up, please feel free to use it, explore its capabilities, and if you have any feedback, we would welcome your feedback as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, are the poverty rates calculated by block group? If so, then would you say it would be beneficial to include the entire block group in the promise zone and not to split it up, since the poverty rate will be calculated into the entire promise zone equation regardless of how much the block group you actually add to the PV? So I think I have two comments for this question. Number one, I don't want to comment on what would be beneficial for your application, because the point of this application is that you draw the neighborhood that your organization wants to work in, right? So you should not be drawing a neighborhood to include parts of a city or community that are high poverty just so that you could do better in the application phase, right? So you should be drawing it independent of the data that's going on in the background. That said, though, what happens is, let's take a look at this block group here. This is in a metropolitan area, so the lowest level geography that we're using is at the block group level. Sorry, I keep signing out to answer questions. Let me sign back in. So in this case, this block group is a pretty high poverty, right? Block group, it's more than 30%. So let's say, though, if I only included like a part of this block group and not the full block group, then my score will have a value of the poverty rate value of the entire block group, right? Because I don't have any values from any of the neighboring block groups. So including only part of this block group does not affect my application at all if I were to include the whole thing. However, if I were to include that part of the block group plus all these other parts of these other block groups, right, then you'll see that the overall score, poverty score, will be much lower because I'm including areas that are in these lower poverty neighborhoods. So, let's say that for this full block group, I'm only including, let's say, half of that block group and half of this block group and a quarter of this block group. So the way that the score works is half times this poverty rate plus half times that poverty rate, and then it gives you the weighted average. Okay, so our city and potential promise zone is separated by a river. Can we include both sides in our promise zone? Yes, you can. No, that's the great thing about this tool. You can draw your zone however best fits your application and your intent. The only thing I would say is, if you're following river lines, again, try not to make it exactly correct. Don't try to, making curves, your curves can be a little blunt. They don't have to be perfect. Okay, and I think that's all the questions that we have. I'm going to turn it back over to you, and if you want to close out, or if you have any other questions that you've heard about that you'd like to address.
No, Thank you all for joining us for this session of the PromiSE Mapping Tool webinar. If you have additional questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out to us at promizone@hud.gov. We look forward to receiving your applications and welcome hearing from you in terms of the plans you have for your local communities. Thank you.